Would you introduce yourselves, please?
Oh, would love to. This is Biscotti the llama, hashtag Biscotti the kissing llama. Look
Yes,
it up. You'll see a
I've noticed that.
whole wall of women doing this kind of smoochy thing. So he's our oldest guy. His official name is Biscotti Chips, hence all the spots on his legs, also known as an Appaloosa llama. And he has been with us for about 5 years. He was another rescue, but he's 18 and a half. He's our very oldest llama, average lifespan 20.
Now you did the walk and talk earlier with us, so you allowed us very kindly to sit in on your llama walk. So you did quite a bit with agritourism, and you got this down pat. I mean, this is kind of a professional show here. We've noticed.
Yes, it is.
And
fine-tuned.
And it's a really great thing because it's a super educational thing. Tell me a little bit about what you do here.
Sure. So, I mean, it really goes back to my background as administration in schools and, you know, with the overall arching umbrella lifelong learner. And so that was really the thinking behind starting up the farm back in 2016. But the reality is a lot of that, whether it's classes, most of it was volunteer, is you've got to find ways to pay your bills.
Yeah.
You know, with rising costs here on the East Coast, maybe even the West Coast, hay bill. We've been here now into our 8th year. It's more than doubled in cost. So, which is one of the reasons we started agritourism.
Yeah.
You know, we really had kind of a nice project set up, mostly educating people about what we do, the information about animals. As you saw, we do a lot of walk and talk is what I call it. And it allows us to both educate people who come to the farm when the reality is they're coming for the smoochy kissiness selfie, and then they take away hopefully appreciation for not only fiber animals, but a little bit about understanding of farming itself. That is their main purpose, are pack animals. Actually goes back to Inca times. They have been, in fact, the llama in South America is still considered sacred because even though I mentioned that our largest one is close to 500, many of the llamas in South America are well over 1,000 pounds. She's like, now you can see full body view. So generally majestic, very comfortable in who they are. Another reason why they're used for guard. She's going over to say hi to her mom, maybe. So, all right, so let's keep walking over and let's see who else we can meet over on the other side, at least before we bring you back up for your hike.
Well, that's one thing that people might kind of say, oh, people are doing goat yoga and they're doing camping with the sheep, but the reality is that most farmers you can't make it on farming unless you have this monstrously large farm, right?
Right.
So you have to diversify your income stream, or you're not going to make it.
That's the key word, diversification. That's something that I think has come about more in the 21st century in order for farms to stay afloat. We know we have rising costs around us, whether it's hay, it's land taxes, it's, you know, vets bills, all of that. And so you do have to diversify. You know, I came into this thinking I was going to be a fiber farmer. I would be able to sit on the back porch and knit away my days after retiring. But the reality is you really have to kind of keep a couple balls in the air in order to be able to support these animals and also, you know, just the general maintenance of a farm.
Yeah, and so at least I know with my grocery bill, it's literally $120, and I have 2 sacks of groceries leaving. Bags of groceries, and it's just horrendous. It's jumped dramatically. So, do you feel comfortable saying if your hay bill is gone up? Can you give people a frame of reference as to what we're talking about
Sure.
for just the feed?
Yeah, so let's start with hay. That is about 85% of our food costs. And as I mentioned, we are now going into our 8th year here at this farm, and our hay has more than doubled in price. In fact, when we started farming here, our hay was $4.50 a bale, and now it's over $11 a bale. Yes. So that's why I say more than doubled. We go through about 2,000 bales a year. So do the math, and you can see how that is a large part of the farming budget.
Yeah. Yeah, now tell me how many of each type of animal you have.
So we have 28 llamas and alpacas. We have 36 Shetland sheep. We have 15 Pygora goats. Now that's all surrounding the fiber business that we're doing here. However, as I mentioned earlier, the farm, the name is all started from our daughter, whose name is Brooke. Her first goat was Clover. So we have probably about 50 dairy goats.
I love when people say probably. You don't know,
yeah,
it's because if the husband watches this, then he's going to go, we have what?
I know, hopefully he's not seeing this. I think he knows already, though.
But these guys, I mean, they have to be functional. And I noticed you were talking to the tour earlier, you were telling them the lifespan of fiber production for this animal. Tell me what that is. This guy is 18, you said?
18 and a half, actually. And so, not all what you conceive to be fiber animals are fiber animals. A lot has to do with the fineness of the fiber. We were talking earlier about the micron count. Now, just by chance, he is not a fiber animal, though you think he would be because he's fluffy. He's actually originally a classic llama where they're not used for fiber. And without kind of like, handling him all over, he has very coarse fiber. So that, to a certain extent, cannot be part of our fiber business in the sense of the focus is yarn. So now we talked earlier about fiber has a lot of uses. It's not just yarn. We use it for making into roving, felted sheets, the boot inserts, and then the big one is felted dryer balls. And so that's kind of as their fiber ages, or I should say as the animal ages, the fiber gets more coarse. We kind of see that in our own hair, right? Yeah. And so that means it makes us shift in terms of the usage of the fiber. Now, does that mean I bring in new, younger animals to continue that fiber process? Possibly. But the reality is we're really, having switched over to be a rescue farm, have really kind of maxed out at our numbers at this point.
Yeah, because you have to feed all these animals for the non-productive time where they have to find another role. They have a responsibility. So this guy's obviously the social coordinator and the one that romances everybody that comes in the door, right?
That's right.
This is your kissing llama.
He is the romancer here.
Yes, but not all of the animals are going to be that way. But we talked about other roles, like maybe the guardian llama. A lot of people assume all llamas are guardians, but that's not always the case, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting is, with the llama industry, it's been changing, evolving, right? We see that. There's a recent New York Times article about how, on the East Coast, llamas have really kind of exploded into popularity. They've always been popular, but the purpose of them continues to grow, and so yes, livestock guardian. I think that was the original purpose back in South America where they came from, and most of the places, whether it's North America or other areas that are using them for farming. But as they start to see, as the years progress, they become more domesticated, a little bit more handleable, a little bit more usable. So hence the hikes that we do here. In addition to that, people use them as you've seen golf caddies. They use them as carrying golf clubs. We bring them to weddings, because people like to have that unique interest for them. And, of course, we're using for the llama alpaca hikes. But I think the most important focus is we do a lot of animal-assisted therapy here. And the fact that over the years they've evolved to be this very docile, comfortable animal with humans really helps with the approach of true and multi-purpose animal. Yeah. How many other animals do you know out there that have all those effective and purposed usages?
Yes.
And then of course, hence the llama alpaca hikes.
Yes. Now, in much of our animal production system, textiles and food production, we have gone to a single purpose with many things, but we kind of forget that it's not just the individual. It's not just a cow. It could be a Devon cow or a Longhorn cow. Those are two very different things. And even within those things, you might get a cranky cow it's going to do what it's going to do, but it's not going to be suitable for all things. So, with your llamas and your alpacas, they're not all going to want to go to Rhinebeck and be held by every little person that walks by, right?
That is exactly it, because a lot of times when people come for the hikes and they see this huge assortment of alpacas and llamas over there, and they're like, I want that one. Well, the reality is it takes a lot of training and it takes a specific temperament for them to get to this or get to the hike. And so it kind of, even though we have, we must have 20 llama and alpaca boys on this side, not all of them are used for the hikes. Basically only 10 of them are, where I feel that they have gone through a kind of a specialized training, we call it, to set up for an unpredictable environment. for
even in such a contained space, you are going to have unpredictable.
you can.
I
yeah.
want to walk the llama this way, and you
Yeah.
know, someone's dragging on the leash in a way that that was not the instructions.
You got it.
Yes, I
You
know.
got
I'm
it.
sorry. Did you like my? Yes. Hello. Yeah, he's just checking still. That's
Yep.
the affirmation.
Wants to make
He's a
sure.
sweetie.
He's a sweetie. He's very curious.
But again, that thing that says that they're not all the same. Here in the pasture, you said he's fine, but he does not like to go to a New York State Sheep and Wool Festival with 30,000 people walking by.
That's right.
So-
you know, he's we always say as the llamas age, I can kind of reflect to that, because as I age, I start to kind of pick up on less of those. I don't want to leave the house as much or go off the farm, right?
Hey, you kids, get off of my lawn.
I know, and he is a perfect example as our oldest. He's like, I've done my time, you youngins go. And in fact, when we go to llama alpaca shows, we always take our younger ones, just because they transition through that kind of, which to you may see a nuance, but it's a big deal for them to leave the farm. And so obviously the younger, the healthier they can kind of recover faster from that. As they get older, it's wear and tear on their system, and so we always say that, especially our older ones, they've earned the time just to stay on the farm and hold down the fort. When we go to the Sheep and Wool Festival, when we go to the Big E for the llama show, when we go to the Dutchess County Fair, and so he's here holding down the fort.
Yep, he's got his
He's
job.
earned it.
Well, I have to commend you. I don't know if this was a volitional decision or not, but you led the group in, and you start with just because the Pygoras are like, pet me, but that was the first animal that was approached, and it's this little thing like this, and they're kind of like, oh, I love you, I'm peaceful, I'm calm, and I'm soft, and I'm cuddly, and it kind of gets them adjusted to the next particular animal, which is a little bigger, right?
Whoa,
than
much
that.
bigger,
Yeah,
right.
much bigger.
Right.
And so it was nice how you sort of spaced that in there. So again, I don't know if that was on purpose, but it was brilliantly done. If so, because those little Pygoras, that's a new one for me, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
They draw people in. Everyone loves a goat. And when they're curly and friendly and, just cute as a button, it draws them in.
Yeah.
So we actually call that, when I do this part of our experience, we call it a pasture walk, but it actually is kind of rephrased as Feel the Fleece Tour. Because I want people to see that a lot of fleeces are different from animal to animal.
Yep.
So we start with the Pygoras, mohair, and you've got the very lustrous feel and softness to it. Then we move on to a llama, that it can be very soft too, different parts of the body. And then, if they get their own alpaca for their tour, but then also there's a sheep out there. I don't know if you met Sunday along the way.
No.
Sunday is, I always tell people, he is a hair sheep. And what does that mean?
That's not Scaredy Cat out here, was it?
No,
Okay.
no. He's in the back. He actually, originally his purpose was as being a meat sheep. And so I try to show people that there's very few dual purpose animals like meat and fiber. You can have it. It's a big, I think, genetics program that they have to focus on.
Yes.
And so with that in mind, I always like to show people that, we all have those wool sweaters that we automatically think sheep or wool, perfect for any type of usage, but that's not the case. There's very few sheep that can be for, we say, garments against your skin, and then it becomes outer garments and or actually this old barn we're just renovating now, when we tore down the sides, it was filled with sheep fleeces. Because they would use
it's such good insulation, isn't it?
They would use it as insulation.
Man, in this, we hit this on our what we call our tartan and tweed tour when we went to the UK last month, 2 months ago now. Over there, you always think England is ubiquitous. I mean, it's the name England and sheep and wool are it, but they don't even worry about the wool for the most part anymore over there because they have no market for it. And does this sound familiar? The wool market is not appreciated as it should by the average consumer, and they don't want to pay that. I just want to pay what I can get for, So they actually shear many of the sheep just as a humane, just as an issue of being humane to the animal, because it costs more to shear it than it does than they can get for it. Yeah. And so this is one of the things I do love about Rhinebeck, is you have people that usually will understand the value, the cost and the value. Because if this animal's really, or the alpaca is going to be really producing effectively 3 or 4 years, and that's kind of the soft years, and yet you have to absorb the rest of it.
Exactly.
Or if you have a goat that, you have to individually comb that, and the softer
cashmere's.
the fiber, I'm sorry, but it's going to cost you $100 for that little lump of wool. I mean, that kind of is a reality, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing that we actually take into approach here, which is one of the most important reasons to train your animals. So they have a multi-purpose use. And again, their purpose is basically grow the fiber, give a haircut, and that happens 3 times a year. So the haircut cycle on the farm, as a fiber farm, it's pretty it's pretty notable that that's kind of what takes up a lot of our time. Everyone gets a haircut in the spring, and that includes the llamas, the alpacas, the Pygora goats, the sheep. And just to kind of put things in perspective, we have 28 llamas and alpacas, we have 36 Shetland sheep, we have 15 Pygora goats. So it's pretty busy here on the farm this spring. And then going on with that haircut cycle, the Pygora goats, they get another one in the summer because their fiber has grown pretty long. And the most important part of giving them these constant haircuts is because their fiber is very fine, it can mat really easily. And if I allow it to mat, that's kind of a loss of a fleece. And so we're really kind of adamant about making sure we're checking them at what point they need to be shorn. And then fall comes around, they get another haircut. And in fact, these Pygora goats had a haircut about a month ago. And then our Shetland sheep, which we'll see along our walk, get another haircut. So amongst all those animals we're referencing, we produce about 300 pounds of fiber here at the farm annually. That gets basically sorted by fineness. First of all, by species, by fineness, by color. And then it gets shipped to a mill that's in Connecticut. And in fact, the mill that we use is one of the vendors at Rhinebeck Sheep and Wool Festival, and they do amazing things with my fiber. I always say to my kids whenever, they're like, I want a new animal. So I say to them, what's your job? And they're like, what? I said, every animal has to have a job on the farm. Yep. And it's not just raising fiber. And so ironically, our kids not only raise the goats, but they've trained them to do the goat walks. So all of this comes and supports the farm in terms of, just general kind of oversight, maintenance of the buildings, food, all of that.
Yeah, it's self-sufficiency, is it not?
Everyone has to pull their weight, including not only just the farmer, all of the farm friends.
Yeah, and it helps the animal in the long run. It's got more uses, and so when one thing, we can wait a little bit. It's not just that one thing, even if they can't do that anymore.
Right, exactly.
So now one of the things that we really love too is that on many farms, yours included, you have a farm shop. and this is probably some of the things that if you, I don't know, do you have a vendor stall at
I do not.
At the festival?
No.
So you just go for the kindness of your soul to show llamas and alpacas and camelids and things like that, to show the general public.
Right. So, education is a huge component. You've seen this on our tour, and to be able to continue that and actually help the camelids and cashmere barns support that going forward, I think in the long run is just as effective than selling goods for the industry.
I would agree.
Letting people understand the benefits to both handling, raising, or better yet, educating before they jump into it.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about, we now have about 28 llamas and alpacas, and about 20 of them are rescues, because a lot of times people think after they get into it.
Yeah.
And so this is an opportunity for both the llama alpaca industry, for the health and humaneness of these animals, how they're handled, and then talking about the benefits of the fiber. So, the reality is the farm store actually came about. A lot of people come here and they want to take a little memento, something from the farm, and that we do the corny little I walked a llama, I walked an alpaca buttons and on. And so that's how it started, the whole, making things out of the fiber for them to kind of be connected again to the farm, not just from the animal they walked. Many times they come into the store and they say, which animal was from this fiber? I could usually show them a loofah, lavender loofah, a hat, fingerless gloves, and it just keeps that cycle of support going.
That's probably my very favorite thing about the festival, is that you see the animal and you can see the beginning, the middle, and you can connect those things. You can say, I felt that gauntlet. Boy, did that color just draw me. But was that the perfect thing for that one? I needed a sweater that was a little sturdier. But you know what? Then I went and talked to the lady down there that had, hello again.
Just checking in.
Just checking. But maybe you find another fiber that's a little bit sturdier, has a little bit longer staple length, and you say, now that's the one that I want for the sweater, but maybe I mixed them. And you can see the animal, you can feel it, touch it, have an appreciation for the sweater once you get it. Yeah. And it kind of brings it full circle a little bit more. It's not just consumerism. In and of itself, consumerism is great because that's what helps to keep people alive.
But we've really surpassed some of that in other aspects.
Yeah.
We are kind of a bit of a throwaway society, right?
Yes.
Going back to purchasing, making something and purchasing something that's meaningful.
Yes.
And you tend to kind of really not only savor that, but also I think it kind of reinvigorates memories and feelings and the smells, the sights, the sounds. And what better than a farm? And maybe even that kind of a musty smell that comes with wool.
I love it. I love the smell of a barn.
Yeah. So, in fact, people come here and they're like, oh my gosh, this kind of is starting to churn some memories when I was a kid and I would go visit, cow farms or So, all of those sensory triggers I think are really important to consumerism.
Yeah, and when you have that in a product, it's living in a way. The
It
wool is
literally, yes.
living.
Yep.
People think, okay, well, it stops once you cut it off the sheep, but it's not. And that's why that whole fiber shed idea of here's where it started. Where's my phone? I've got it. I'm sorry, Rick. I'm going to interrupt this moment.
He's making the rounds. There he goes.
Smooching everybody for what you didn't see the behind the camera part.
He loves beards, by the way.
But it's a really nice thing because it brings you back to the real things. It's a textural thing. You feel it and touch it, and it brings you back to a place like this, and you say, I can imagine that now.
Yep.
And I can feel like I'm on the farm, or I can remember my grandmother's hug because she knitted me the sweater.
The scratchy sweater, the smell of the fiber. Yeah. I mean, whether it's, you've heard the whole term of slow fashion. I like to kind of use that cliche and say like slow farming. As you saw, people come to the farm and, most of the people from the city, and they're running here late because they had to go to work and pick something up or whatever. And then by the end, they're just this relaxation, their shoulders are more relaxed, and they've kind of like settled into the walk and their animal. Yeah. And it just like plays a huge role in many ways, whether it's therapeutic or not. We need more of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that you're there every year, and I'll just mention that whether or not everybody knows it, you sort of are the mover and shaker in the camelid barn, and it's good because sometimes animals get forgotten. Everybody thinks wool and thinks sheep, right? But it's not just that. And some people think, cashmere, and they think sheep. No, that's a goat.
Right.
But so it's great to see these other animals in there that are a little outside of the norm, or our norm, what we conceive to be the definition of something, and to have something like this that is just so foreign and both so interesting at the same time that this guy just came up and smooched me. I'm going to really think differently about llamas after that, right?
Yeah.
And it's a great thing.
It is. And it's a great segue into the Dutchess County Wool Growers Association, which started the Sheep and Wool Festival, in the 80s. Our daughter, Kate, who's been raising llamas, as you saw, and she's 17, is the wool ambassador. And I think it shows you
really?
It's just, she's going into her third year, probably her last year because she'll go to college next year. But it shows you the embracing wool in general. Just the fact that the Dutchess County Sheep and Wool Growers Association is recognizing that fiber in itself has a lot of usages and purposes, whether it's sheep, llamas, alpacas, yaks.
They want to get a yak in there. I told Jerry, she said, I'd love to get a yak. I said,
cashmere
I might be able
goats,
to help you with that.
Pygora. So it's kind of a great reflection of the fiber industry in whole in terms of embracing everything.
I agree, and they are so open to the educational component to it. They really, really are adamant because, we were talking to them about doing the live streaming, asking them their preferences, and they said, we are about education. Yeah. That is our main focus. So, this volunteer organization, it's a volunteer run every year. Not everybody understands. I think I want to say, 80 volunteers or something, just like crazy like that. Yeah. Yep. And you got literally 30,000 people coming in there. It's a big deal.
It's a lot of juggling.
Yeah, it is. And they have the vendor barns, and so every year, this is one of my favorite things about it, is this ability for every person to come back and connect that thing that they wear with something that's closer to the earth.
Yep.
And that's just a beautiful thing. So everybody that goes out and says, why is that sweater $500? It's not just the sweater and the time and the $2 an hour that person made to get that sweater, but this is you are getting a connection that you will not get when you go. I mean, no offense to Old Navy, but you're not going to get that when you buy your sweater at Old Navy.
That is.
It's just not going to happen.
Spot on. Yeah.
So you are in a way you are attempting to buy meaning. Does that? And I every year I love that about this. You can see the sheep, see the sweater and say, I'm taking a little piece of that home.
I think I do see a changeover since we bring over 4,000 people to the farm itself, and a lot of them are millennials.
Yep.
You know, and I'm starting to see that changeover, appreciation of that, recognize the importance of that. I find them to be a little bit less materialistic and more experiential.
Yeah.
You know, they want to experience. That's what their interests are about now. And so, you know, with that, I just, you know, we not only the llama alpaca hikes, because you've got that sensory orientation, but the classes that we offer here too, they're along that same premise. And so everything that we'll source to run the class, everything in the class will be sourced directly from the farm. So keep that kind of encouragement of learning, asking, looking, you know, finding connections as a consumer as you go, which I think is it's the best thing we can do at this point, right?
Yeah, it is. And the thing that all of those people do not realize, I think probably, is that their consumer dollars are helping to keep small farms alive.
Their llama or alpaca, talking to people, answering questions, telling them, you know, to pet them on their neck, the softness of the fiber. And then, of course, the infamous leaping llama demo obstacle course.
We'll cover that.
Oh, yeah, we do that on Sunday. And I always joke around, you know, I say to my kids, don't let my animals, because at one time we had more than one farm coming representing the llamas. Now it's just down to one. And I'm like, do not teach them how to jump over the 5-foot limbo bar, because what we would then see is they would come back here and they'd be jumping around like, you know, a professional hurdler. And so anyways, but I've got some great kids who have been with me since they were little ones, and they will be there comfortable talking to people about their animals and sharing everything they think that is really special to them with the festival goers. So it's a really special time, and of course the best festival because of the, you know, atmosphere. It's in the fall, and
It's in the fall. It's just
beautiful.
it's one of my favorite events all year long.
Here.
Yeah. So if people want to find you here on the farm, what is your contact information?
So Clover Brooke Farm, and
With an E?
With an E, with an E. In fact, it is the Clover Brooke Farm in Hyde Park. So we say find us on the website, www.cloverbrookfarm.com. We are the Clover Brooke Farm in Hyde Park, as you saw, not one in Pauling, spelled differently, 2 different farms.
Yeah.
We can be found on, of course, social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Yes, I do post when I can. In fact, most of our followers now follow us and find us on TikTok. And so, you know, and then, of course, the old-fashioned way, email. So we are here, and visiting the farm is by appointments, of course, just mostly so we can be here and ready to take you on your special, unique experience.
Very definitely. Now, if they wanted to find out more about the Spitters Club or 4-H in general, where would you recommend that they go?
So they could either go to Cornell Cooperative Extension website, or they can just email me directly, and I can give them information about specifically the Spitters Club. So eventually you'll be popping back and forth from either one, so whether it's Cornell Cooperative Extension or us. But no, we would love to share the farm with especially youth so they can enjoy agriculture at its best.
And get kissed by a llama.
By a biscotti.